Love That Remains, an Inquiry. I used to call it Source by Liz Eaglesnake, 8 of August of 2026. Introduction. When I began writing these essays, I believed I was writing about intimacy. At least, that was the word available to me at the time. I did not have an agenda, and I definitely was not trying to prove a philosophy or explain my framework. I was simply following a question wherever reality insisted on taking it. Each movement answered a question, and each answer quietly gave rise to a new question. Looking back, I can see that no essay ever truly ended. Rather, each one became the threshold for the next. What began as an inquiry into intimacy gradually revealed itself to be an inquiry into love. Not romantic love or devotional love, not even the love between a parent and a child, something far more fundamental. As the inquiry deepened, I watched each essay dismantle a definition that had become too small for what was being revealed. Intimacy first appeared as being seen by another. Then it became the willingness to meet reality without standing between myself and what was happening. By the end of the fifth movement, I believed I had reached the heart of the inquiry. I was wrong. Reality handed me one more question. This sixth movement changed more than any other essay in this collection. Each time it seemed complete, reality refused the conclusion, sometimes gently, sometimes violently. The inquiry widened, the language changed, the center of gravity shifted, yet the essay remained. Eventually, I understood why. It had never been searching for a better conclusion. It had been searching for a better question, a far more fundamental one. Because every genuine answer organizes a landscape from which the next question emerges. And the question this movement finally follows are deceptively simple. The first asks, what is love? The second asks, what does an organism become? How does an organism become increasingly available to inhabit love? The first inquiry is ontological, while the second is developmental. The first inquiry invites us into the nature of reality. The second reveals the nature of the one who lives within it. This movement follows both, because together they reveal something neither inquiry could reveal on its own. Act 1. What is love? There are moments in a life that reorganize everything that comes after them. Not because they answer every question, but because they make certain questions impossible to continue being asked. For years, I believed the deepest truths would reveal themselves through transcendence. Silence arrived before the light. Not the absence of sound, rather the kind of silence from which music seems to emerge. Then came the choir of cherubs, then the visions. An angel of impossible proportion, nearly 10 meters tall. He never touched me. He didn't need to. My consciousness rose toward him as though lifted by thought alone. The body remained where it was. I did not. I arrived at the gates and they opened to receive me. As I entered, something began expanding, not around me, inside me. My body felt as if it were growing from within. The ache was extraordinary, not the ache of injury, the ache of vastness. As though every atom were slowly separating from every other atom, while some invisible force barely held them together. The dense weight of the body disappeared. Bones disappeared. Skin disappeared. Edges disappeared. I could no longer distinguish my chest from my hands, my head from my feet. There was only an immense field of something astonishingly light, as though my entire body had become a single breath, held together by the finest thread of magnetism. The shaking began, and it could not be stopped. Not because I lacked discipline, because there was no one left to stop it. My bracelet was strung with tiny bells. They rang uncontrollably as my body trembled beneath the force of whatever was moving through it. The sound became part of the experience itself, almost unbearably beautiful. I tried to open my eyes. The room was dark. I closed them again. The light was blinding. Not because it shone upon me, because it was everything. There was no source from which it radiated, no direction, no center, only light, the totality of it. My eyes could not remain closed. They could not remain open. It made no difference. There was nowhere the light was not. The point of reference I always called me had disappeared. There was still awareness. There was still witnessing. But the witness and the witnessed no longer occupied different places. The distinction dissolved. There was only immediacy, only impossible intimacy. A love so immense that the organism could barely contain it. Tears came, not because I was sad, because beauty had exceeded every structure through which I had ever known how to receive it. Time disappeared. Forever and an instant became indistinguishable. When awareness of the room slowly returned, I was convinced an eternity had passed. Very little time had. My body insisted it needed to release. I hurried to the bathroom. Nothing happened. It was as though every signal within the nervous system had briefly forgotten how it was meant to respond to stimuli. Only later, sitting with my journal, did language begin emerging with a name. The symbols that carried me there had been Christian. Archangel Michael, Saint Peter, the gates of heaven. But what waited beyond them belonged to no religion I had ever encountered. I called it Source, because it felt like the place from which all ideas, even God, seemed to emerge. And it was also the largest word available to me at the time. Years passed. My daughter died. My husband died. One evening, this particular ceremony came to visit me. What visited me had not changed. The memory had not changed. The experience had not changed. The territory was exactly the same. However, after everything I had lived, I could no longer call that place Source. I began calling it love. And this became the central mystery. Why would reality rename the most transcendent experience of my life? For a long time, I assumed ceremony allowed access to the deepest truths. Over time, I came to see that ceremony does not so much reveal the deepest truths as introduces us to them. It offers us a first encounter with a territory that is far too vast to inhabit all at once. Reality, however, has extraordinary patience. It keeps bringing us back into contact with the same truths again and again, through joy and grief, through relationship and loss, through ordinary mornings and interrupted plans, until what once seemed extraordinary becomes available in ordinary life. Reality behaves like fire. It reveals. Everything that is not simply burns away. Reality brought me death. Death removed the shape of love I imagined the future would carry. It removed the future I thought would hold us, plans, assumptions, identities, every ordinary form through which I had known our life together. The bodies disappeared. The voice, the laughter, the beautiful blue eyes, the mornings we would have shared, the future I had imagined. Everything that should have carried love disappeared, and yet love remained. But for a long time I struggled to name what exactly had remained. I called it memory, meaning, devotion, grief, but none of those words were large enough. Memory fades, meaning changes, devotion fluctuates, grief evolves. Yet something had continued, quietly and persistently. One evening I was dancing alone in my kitchen when grief returned without warning. I wish Nick were here to share this moment with me. The tears arrived before language. I knew his blue eyes did not remain. His hands did not remain. His laughter did not remain. His body did not remain. Only love remained. And slowly, I began to realize this was not only the love I felt for him, it was a love that continued shaping the way I met the world long after my relationship with him had changed form. And for a while, I believed the teaching had been learning to let go, the greatest lesson of my life. I was wrong. The teaching was learning to recognize what remains. The way he taught me to laugh, the way he taught me to sing to coffee, the way he taught me to meet life, the way he taught me to love, the way he continued shaping the woman who remained after he was no longer in his body. And as I began recognizing the architecture through which love had remained, I believed the fire had finished its work. But reality wasn't finished. Grief revealed that love survives death. Reality was about to reveal that love survives life. My stomach dropped. A cold sensation burned my throat as the words left my mouth. Do you want me to leave? That was a question I asked. The real question was different. Did I want to leave? For the previous 10 days, I had been immersed in the kiln, watching myself burn away once again. Or rather, watching the parts I had mistaken for myself slowly loosen their grip. The fire at Seguialgar West was relentless. Humid days, hot evenings, endless dreams, ceremonies, long hours in the heat, land clearings, meditation in the Gompa, ocean tides, sleepless nights, lovemaking, silence, arguments, reconciliation, green tara, quartz points, Akashic readings, a toddler who readily left my side, a man who loved me deeply while I quietly lost access to the woman I believed myself to be. Something in me was reorganizing faster than my nervous system could make sense of. I arrived feeling expansive, welcomed by the feminine presence of the land, carried by visions, dreams, and an unmistakable sense that consciousness itself was inviting me into a larger participation with reality. For several days, everything seemed illuminated. Symbols appeared everywhere. The land felt alive. Love poured through my body with an intensity I had rarely known outside of ceremony. Then my bleed began. Almost overnight, my availability to reality increased dramatically. Love remained. So did fear. Not fear that he did not love me, fear that I was not worthy to receive the love I knew to be there. The more certain I became of love, the less certain I became of my ability to remain open to it. Every ordinary interaction seemed to arrive amplified. A happenstance landed like rejection. A practical comment became uncertainty. A simple event felt like abandonment. A passing remark echoed for hours. Meanwhile, my own body felt foreign to me. My face changed. My mind shifted. Time itself seemed strangely discontinuous. I would fall asleep and wake up inside a slightly different version of myself without remembering how I had arrived there, over and over. I wondered if I was losing something essential. Instead, what I was losing was what no longer belonged, what was never me. The land slowly revealed something I had spent years overlooking. I had become extraordinarily skilled at surviving, extraordinarily skilled at excavating meaning, extraordinarily skilled at carrying, but I had not yet fully learned how to receive without having to earn it first. The question that eventually emerged had almost nothing to do with whether he or even I wanted to stay. It became, will I remain with myself as I learn to receive? Because if I abandon myself, who is there to receive? That realization changed the entire experience. Not because the fire ended, but because I stopped trying to escape it. Reality continued burning, and it brought me into deeper intimacy with my beloved and myself. Distance disappeared, fantasy disappeared, curation disappeared, idealization disappeared, the polished versions of ourselves disappeared. Relationship became ordinary. Two human beings remained, sometimes exhausted, sometimes frightened, sometimes misunderstanding one another, sometimes failing, sometimes succeeding. Conflict arrived, childcare arrived, disappointment arrived, reality arrived, love remained, again and again and again. Eventually, something else became impossible to ignore. Love is not proven by favorable conditions. Love is revealed by their removal. And I was reminded once again that fire does not create, fire reveals. Reality had answered the first question. Love is the organizing principle. The forms change, the organization remains. The answer to the first inquiry immediately gave rise to the second. Because if love is the organizing principle, if we already live within love, what then allows an organism to inhabit it? Act 2. Identification. There is a difference between being loved and being able to receive love. These are not the same developmental achievement. Love may already be present. The organism may still be unable to receive it. Love may already be arriving. The organism may still be organized around conditions that prevent it from receiving what is being given. Love organizes reality. The organism, however, may still organize itself around something else. For a long time, I believed people needed healing in order to become available to love. Now I believe something far more fundamental. What people need is to learn how to inhabit a reality already organized by love. But just as many others, my life had organized itself around a hidden equation. I deserve to be loved because I am useful, helpful, strong, aware, capable. Each answer filled a blank. None questioned the equation. And the equation interfered with my ability to receive love unconditionally. This is how love can be everywhere and remain inaccessible. At Segyalgar, the equation became visible. Not as another belief, not as another wound, not as another insight, as an identity. The woman who believed she had to earn love. The one who believed she had to explain her fears, that she had to struggle in order to deserve what had already been given. And the moment I stopped identifying with her, the recognition arrived. The words arrived. The body reorganized. My stomach released. My chest opened. Nothing outside me changed, but everything inside me began reorganizing. Recognition alone had not reorganized my life. My life began to reorganize because my body finally became capable of carrying what realization had revealed. Only then could I see what had been happening all along. My bleed was already doing what my mind had not yet understood. In its own intelligence, my womb released what I could no longer carry. The land amplified the fire. There is a difference between recognizing love and inhabiting love. The first changed my understanding. The second changed my life. Reality had not changed. Love had not changed. My organism had. And when peace arrived, it was not because reality became easier. Peace arrived because the organism no longer required reality to become something else before participating in it. This, I have come to believe, is liberation. Not freedom from experience, freedom within experience. The gradual increase in our availability to inhabit the love that has always been there. I had spent years believing love needed to find me. Reality revealed that love had been there all along. I simply had not yet become available enough to perceive and inhabit it. The question had changed. It was no longer whether love was present. It was whether I could remain available enough to fully inhabit the reality already organized by it. That is the work. Everything else follows. Invitation, entering the field. If love is the organizing principle of reality, and availability is what allows us to increasingly inhabit that reality, then the work has never been to become more lovable, nor has it been to become more healed or more spiritual. The work has always been to become more available. Not available in the sense of endless openness, and not available at the cost of discernment, boundary, rhythm, or self, available as presence. Available as the capacity to remain inside our own experience while reality reveals what is here. In reality, we do not seek love, for in love we live, move, and have our being. Hence, the invitation is not to seek, it is to become available. This is the field I tend, not an idea I teach or a framework I explain. It is a living organism, something we enter, something that responds, something that becomes perceptible through participation. Inside it, insight is not the destination, it is the beginning of relationship. We listen for what is already organizing beneath the language. We notice what the body can recognize, what the organism can carry, and what remains unavailable even after the mind understands. We do not force experience to yield an answer before it is ready. We create the conditions in which what is already known can become recognizable, inhabitable, and available in ordinary life. The field is not separate from reality. It is a way of entering reality, a way of reducing the interference that prevents us from recognizing what is already here, a way of remaining present long enough for contact to deepen, for availability to increase, for capacity to emerge, and for liberation to begin. You do not need to arrive certain. You do not need to become more spiritual before entering. You arrive as you are, with the grief that is there, with the desire that is there, with the uncertainty, beauty, resistance, longing, and love that are already there. Nothing must be exiled before reality can be met. The question is not whether you can transcend your experience. The question is whether you can become available enough to fully inhabit it. If something in these essays has felt less like information and more like recognition, perhaps you have already touched the field. This is your invitation to enter it deliberately, not to find love, to discover what becomes possible when nothing stands between you and the love already organizing your life. With embodied presence, Eagle Snake.